This video is going to cover section 2-1 in pre-algebra called Properties of Numbers. The objectives of this section are to identify properties of addition and multiplication and to use properties to solve problems. This video will focus on the first one. The first property we will cover is called the commutative property of addition and multiplication. Let's start with the root word, commute. For example, if your parents commute from home to work, they are covering a certain number of distance, as they are when they return from work to home. Here is an example of the commutative property of addition. Notice that there is an addition sign in between, so I know it's of addition, not multiplication. And I can see that 1 plus 2 is 3. But if I reverse it and do 2 plus 1, it is also 3. So that's called the commutative property of addition. In algebra form would be like this one. N plus 5 equals 5 plus n. Using the same idea of the commutative property, now let's look at multiplication. This example uses multiplication between two numbers. Notice the left side will give you the same answer as the right side. Now with algebraic letters, variables, I can do a times b, and that will give me the same answer as b times a. The next property is the associative property of addition and multiplication. Notice in my first example that 1 plus 2 plus 3 is in the same order on the left side and the right side. So no numbers moved or commuted. But notice the parentheses moved. They're first around the 2 plus 3, and now they're around the 1 plus 2. So it's telling us to do the parentheses first by order of operations. I would get 5 here, then I would add the 1 and get 6. Over here, I would add the 1 and 2 first to get 3, and then 3 plus 3 is 6. I get the same answer. So that's called the associative property of addition. With variables, this is a plus b plus c equals a plus the quantity of b plus c. Now you'll notice this one had two sets of parentheses. But if you think about it, order of operations tells us to do what on this property since there's no parentheses? The a plus b. So it's like there's parentheses around the a plus b. And now we're moving them to here. These again are the associative property of addition. Next, the associative property of multiplication. We're just putting multiplication in there. Notice we're going from parentheses around the last two to no parentheses, but remember, order of operations says left to right, so really there are parentheses around there, reminding you to do that first. And then algebraic form again, notice we both have algebraic variables in there. And again, parentheses move parentheses. Now let's try an example. Carlos rented a set of golf clubs for $7 and a golf cart for $12. He paid a greens fee of $23. Find his total cost. Notice I wrote my expression in the same order that I was given. But if I look at this, if I go in order of operations, 7 and 12 would be first from left to right. That would give me 19, and 19 plus 23 is not very quick of a sum. So what I'm going to do is notice that 7 and 23 is a much faster addition. So I'm going to switch the 7 and the 12's positions. That's called using the commutative property of addition. Then if I look at this line, I notice that the 12 and 7 are still first. Well, I don't want them to be first. I want them to be second. So up here, I really had parentheses around there. Now I'm moving the parentheses, which is called the associative property of addition. Then from here, I can do 7 plus 23 is 30, and then 12 plus 30 is $42. Now it's your turn. Your example was if you spend $6 for dinner, $8 for a movie, and $4 for popcorn, find your total cost. Explain which properties you used or properties. I'm going to start with the numbers in the order they gave us. But I noticed that the 6 and the 4 make a nice 10, so I want those to go together. So I flip-flop the 8 and the 6, which is called the commutative property of addition. Then I put parentheses around the 6 and the 4 to force them to go first, which is the movement of parentheses, associative property of addition. And then I added and got 8 plus 10, and then I got 18. Next, we're still going to focus on the identifying variables in numerical expressions and algebraic expressions. First, we need to cover what an additive identity is. An additive identity is 0, and the multiplicative identity is 1, which means if I add two numbers and I get 0, that's called the additive identity. And if I multiply two numbers and get 1, that's the multiplicative one. The identity properties I remember as the identity. So I want to keep my identity. So notice 1 plus 0 still gives me 1. 1 kept his identity. Letters. 0 plus A gives me A. Notice A kept his identity. Multiplication. 5 times 1 is 5. So 1 is the multiplicative identity, and 1 times B is B. Next, the inverse property of addition and multiplication. Inverse means it's going to end in 0 or end in 1. So notice, 7 and its opposite is 0. A plus the opposite of A is 0. Now multiplication, 2 times 1/2 is 1, and B times 1 over B is 1. Next, let's try an example. We're going to name each property that is shown. I'm going to look at letter A and notice there's a multiplication in here. And I'm also going to notice that the 5 and 7 are in different spots. So that's the commutative property of multiplication. Letter B, I see a 1. Well, is the 1 at the end? Or is it being used? It looks to me like it's being used as 1. So notice I kept my identity. C gives me C. That would be the identity property of multiplication. Here I notice the 7 and A are in different positions, so that's commutative, but notice it's addition this time. And the last one is the parentheses move. The 5x and y stayed in the same positions. Now it's your turn. Name the properties shown. Notice again, the 3 and 6 are swapped. That would be also addition. I'm using the 1. The 8 kept his identity. And my parentheses.